Greetings and welcome to Jefficho Films. Sometimes I look for a weird movie, and sometimes those weird movies find me. This 1982 movie stars Malcolm McDowell, who I like despite the fact that he killed Captain James T. Kirk. He's still kinda cool. Well, let's review Cat People. This movie starts out with a custom musical theme by David Bowie, and it's kind of fun. Then we get a bunch of leopards in like Africa or somewhere, and they're just sitting around some bones, and then some tribal people grab these women and they take them and they tie one up to a tree, and then later a leopard comes by, and I'm guessing it eats her because she's not there the next day, and a woman brings another younger girl by the next day and puts her inside of a cave. That's a great panther drawing. I'm just saying, the artist should win awards. Inside the cave, the panther's just chilling, and the girl's just staring into its eyes. And then we fade to Irena Gallier, played by the lovely Nastassja Kinski. She's at an airport in New Orleans, meeting up with her brother, who she hasn't seen since she was like 4 years old, Paul. And he shows up, and he's played by Malcolm McDowell. He takes her back to his place, and we meet Famali, who's like a friend of Paul's, or maybe his maid. I'm not too sure. She cooks all the meals, so... And then Paul's getting a bit touchy, bit friendly, so much so that he'd make a good Romulan in a Picard series. They have dinner, they reconnect and get to know each other, and then Irena goes to sleep, and Famali gives Paul a dirty look as he's heading upstairs, and he goes into her bedroom, and... Then we see Ruthie head into a hotel. She's a prostitute, and she heads upstairs into a room and has a conversation all to herself. She notices a sticky substance on the bed, and she keeps touching it. She's also kicking what I assume is a leopard's tail, and it claws her good. She does manage to crawl down the stairs and escape somehow, though. The next day we meet Dr. Oliver Yates and Alice, who's played by a lovely Annette O'Toole, who was Martha Kent in Smallville, also Lana Lane in Superman 3. So... they got the black leopard trapped inside the hotel room, and this is the zoologist team from the New Orleans Zoo, and they go in there and they climb a ladder from the outside and trank it, and it's not happy, but it does eventually pass out, and they get it. Irene's taking in the sights in New Orleans, and you shouldn't wander that city alone, or say Candyman in front of a mirror 5 times down there. She's looking for Paul at his church, but he's not in there. The next day, Irena visits a zoo, and it's got elephants and peacocks and lions, tigers, apes, and a leopard. She decides to draw the leopard. Upstairs, Judson, played by John Larroquette, says it might be cheaper to euthanize the leopard than take care of it. That night, Oliver's listening to the leopard growl, and he looks outside and he sees Irena there. The zoo's been closed for an hour and a half, and she goes running away from him and jumps really high into a tree. I don't know how she did that. Maybe she's a cat. She eventually comes down, but she says she doesn't feel good, so he gets her some water, and she refuses aspirin because she doesn't believe in medicine. She says she's always had a weird metabolism, and suggests that they go for dinner, but she doesn't eat meat, so they end up at Dixie's Diner. And then he talks about how he worked at the zoo for like 11 years, and she needs a job, so he offers her one. The next day, Alice is hosing down an elephant, and it's adorable.
Like I said, the pay ain't great.
No, I really like it. I like to be around the animals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oliver pops by the gift shop where Irena's now working, and then later Alice does too and helps her out, and then the two girls go out for food. She says she's never met anybody that she cared about enough to sleep with. She's a bit of a romantic. And then a strange lady pops by and calls her something in some strange language, which means sister.
What? Hermana.
The next day, Irena's watching Joe clean the cages, and he goes to clean the leopard's cage, and she stares into his eyes and recognizes them, and he starts to freak out. And then Joe tries to get this electrical prod and actually attaches it to his arm, which I don't know why you'd do that, and he sticks his arm in, and he gets it ripped off. Oliver and Alice go back to his place and he gets a gun, but when he returns, the leopard is gone. Surprising, because next we see Paul, who says he's been imprisoned for praying for others.
Paul, don't you touch me! But I'm the only one who can touch you. You're the only one who can touch me. Don't you see we're safe together because we're the same?
Dave, I'm not like you!
Paul tries to get a bit touchy, and without directly saying it, he's like, we're the same. We both cats, sis. And then she runs, and he hops after her. And she ends up running into a cop car, and they go to assist her, and she's like, no, it's okay. It's my brother. It's nothing wrong. And then they decide, because the dogs are freaking out, to have a full-on investigation. Even her zoo friends showed up because the police called them because they found 3 or 4 bodies in the basement inside of a cage. They think Paul's been feeding them to the leopard.
How could he have handled it by himself?
He was raised around them, at least until he was 10. His folks were carnival people, lion trainers, till they blew their brains out one night.
Famali is arrested under suspicion, and then Paul decides to take Irena back to his place. They sleep that night, and then they go for a drive out to the country. They pull over the side of the road, get inside the boat because it's the only way to get to his other place, where his friend Yates watches over it. Down at the cemetery, Billy is getting her picture taken by Paul, and he suggests dinner later, and Oliver and Irena are fishing. Also, I think he's tired of beating around the bush, clearly.
Yeah, that's alligators. They're gonna eat us.
Alligators.
Yeah? There's only one way to keep them away. You know what that is? You have to make love.
Dude, she just witnessed a death. 3-day rule. Paul's having some performance issues, so the girl decides to give him head, but she keeps talking. How does that work? Irena wakes in the middle of the night and she sees the sleeping Oliver, so she decides to wander around. Then she gets naked, and her eyes are seen in different spectrums. No, you leave that bunny alone. You're a vegetarian. You said so. She comes back, and Oliver turns on the light, and this is how you know you have a crazy girl you like, when she overreacts like this.
Don't look at me!
Paul wakes up naked on the bathroom floor. Been there. He looks into the bedroom, and he sees a lot of blood and a dead Billy. And Detective Brandt has Oliver and Alice over to the crime scene. Oliver gets back to Irena, and she wants to run away. She says it's just getting too crazy. Paul said he loves her, that he loved her before she was even born. How does that work? A week later, and they're searching the woods, and Oliver is on edge.
Look, they set their traps. They did everything they could. What do you want?
Is that what you're gonna say the next time it kills
Hey,
somebody?
don't give me that shit, Oliver. You're the one who wouldn't shoot the bastard when we had him in a cage.
Paul is outside Irena's window at Oliver's place, and he jumps through it, and even he comes on strong.
Save me. Only you can stop this killing. You've got to make love with me. As brother and sister.
Is that a common trait among leopards? Paul gives more speeches about how they're meant to be together, and then she stabs his hand, which then you start to see a panther paw coming through it. And Alice and Oliver show up, and it's raining hard. And they get inside, and he sees some shadows, so he goes into the room, and he sees a half-transforming Paul. Then Oliver does battle with the leopard, and Alice shows up, and she shoots it with a shotgun, and he flies out the window, and Irena screams. The next day at the morgue, he's doing an autopsy on it, and he pulls it out, and I think they drugged an actual leopard, because you can see it breathing, and it looks totally lifelike. And then, when they're doing the actual cutting into it, it's pretty fake material, so... Inside the leopard, he confirms his suspicious. He sees a human hand, but then it just turns into gas, and he starts to choke on it. Should have wore a better mask. Irena visits Famali at the jail, and she gets some advice, but she decides that she's going to run and go to the transportation system, this big train station, and we hear a cat commercial, like a cat food commercial. It's pretty random. She gets on a train to Richmond, I'm guessing Virginia, and then she has a dream sequence, and she finds out that parents sacrificed their kids to leopards. Souls of the children grew inside the leopards, and they are an incestuous race. They must make love to their siblings to stay human, or they can only become human again when they kill. Music got really loud during the narration, so I'm not 100% on that, but she is told to go back. And then we see Alice, she's out for a midnight jog, just jogging around at night and being stalked. She manages to get to her gym just before closing for a quick dip. She gets topless and oh my, Annette O'Toole. Then she hears a roar and she just runs straight to the pool and dives in. don't cats like fear water? She should be safe there. And then Irena shows up because the lights go out. I'm not sure why she's acting like a villain though.
What's wrong, Alice? What are you I'm sorry for frightening you.
She says she's looking for Oliver. Well, he's not in the ladies' change room or in his pool. You can clearly see that. He's in his dark room looking at pictures of Irena. That's not weird. And then his phone goes off, but when he goes downstairs, it's off the hook and he hangs it up and then it rings again and it's Alice. Then he sees Irena and she looks at him and then starts heading upstairs and taking her clothes off and he follows. I mean, I get it, but you know this is the kind of sex that could cost you your life. She sits on the side of his bed and he gets naked, sits beside her, and they make love. And then he falls asleep and she gets up and just starts walking around naked. And I had trouble writing notes and watching the screen at the same time here, so just give me a second here, guys. Yeah, well, she does something in the bathroom. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but she's not a virgin. She climbs back into bed, but then her face starts to change and she starts losing hair a bit too early for her age. And then we get like a full-on werewolf transformation, but, you know, into a black leopard. And she scares the shit out of Oliver. And then she jumps out the window and scares the shit out of a few biker cops too. Alice comes by and she tells Oliver the police have spotted the leopard and they head out to the middle of the bridge. That's where the police have it trapped. But then it jumps off into the water and the police start shooting at it. And then Oliver leaves Alice there. Get it, Oliver. Irena, it's fucking cute, like seriously adorable, but she's got some serious issues, where Alice, less issues, and she takes care of herself, and she has the same interest as you. She's a zoologist, and if you saw what I saw in the gym, well, it's not an impossible decision. He drives out to his country home where he finds his friend dead, and Irena's standing there, and he points a gun at her, and she says that he has to kill her or set her free, and then she gets naked, and he grabs some rope, and kisses her. Kinky. Then he ends up tying her to the bed, and she gives him the cat equivalent of puppy dog eyes. He ties her down, gets naked. Dude, you pretty much stuck to one position now. And they do it. I'm guessing a little while later, Oliver shows up at the zoo and he kisses Alice. And then he walks over to the cage where he has a black leopard and he reaches in and he pets her. Sure, you can do that now, but once she smells Alice on you, it's her off. And then we hear the Bowie song. The end. She was talking to him. I'm not sure I want to be with my kind meant stick me in the zoo. I'm pretty sure she wanted to go home and like remain an animal rather than be human, but like not in a cage. She should have banged Oliver before she left because she came back all villainous but hadn't gone through the transformation. Had she have killed someone, it would have made more sense why she returned and wanted to die. Have it been a longer period of time where Oliver moved on and hooked up with Alice, thus when she returns she wants to hurt Alice out of jealousy. It just seems like some of the motivations would have fit a lot better if they just moved a few things around. Budget of $12.5 million and the box office return of $21 million, so that's not too bad. But where did this strange lady go from the bar earlier that called her sister? I mean, she was totally looking for advice. If there was a group of cat people out there, they should have really found her. I guess I got my Catgirl movie. Decent story, weird fucking Malcolm McDowell performance, and it had a few memorable scenes in it. And I'm not just talking about the nude scenes. Get your mind out of the gutter. See what I did there? Phrasing. Well, I'd totally check this out if you want to see a weird movie with some decent acting and a decent weird ass story. As always, thanks for watching.